All right. Okay. I think that's going now. That's on. All right. Let me get the video on and we'll be right back.
It's time for Red Salad Review with your hosts, Wayne Moon, Greg Narvo, and Lou Maddox.
Welcome to Rat Cell Review. Wow, Lou, perfect timing.
What? Miss out on an opportunity to speak to Mr. Jeff Plate? Hell freaking no.
Hey,
Hey, welcome, Jeff Plate, to Rat Cell Review. How are you?
Good evening.
good. I love that intro music. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's not
Frost-
done by us. That's done by friends of ours from a band called Frostbite BC. They're from Massachusetts. Very cool band.
Yes. And they're what you get when you combine Santa and Satan and a whole lot of weed. So
What did you call him again? What was the name?
Frostbite BC.
BC.
Wow. I got to ask. So, a good friend of mine who was the engineer, did all the final mixing and mastering for the Alta Reign CDs. He's in Hanover, Mass,
Mhm.
which is
Okay.
South Shore.
Okay.
I got to ask him if he knows this band because he's done a lot of work with a lot of people out there. Yeah, interesting.
It's very
But anyhow,
possible.
Yeah,
Cool.
they're from New
Cool.
England, right, Wayne?
Yeah, they're from New England. Yep, and they only play like during the holiday season, so kind of like TSO does. But you
Wow.
know, they're very unique.
Not on the grander scale.
Yes,
TSO.
yes, not,
Yeah,
not as big as that.
There's a little there's Mannheim Steamroller, there's TSO, and then there's these guys. So
Exactly.
Yes, you can find them at Tootsie's Bar and Grill. So
But welcome to the show, Jeff. And it's
Thank you.
actually, I don't know if you remember, but I actually played a show with you years and years ago in Brooklyn.
with
It was Machines of Grace, and it was
Oh.
Cage, and it was the band Ravage, and my band at the time was Phoenix Rain. We opened up the show for you guys.
Nice.
Yeah, so
Nice.
that was a really cool show, and it was the first time I got to meet you. And you signed my CD as well. You, Zach, and everybody else in the band signed the CD.
Oh, how
So
cool.
that was really cool. And yeah, it was nice meeting you guys, and I'm glad to have you on my show now. It's a full circle now. Now that this is my last show. The show is
It's
complete.
amazing, this music world is so huge and it's very small all at the same time. How many times you actually cross paths with somebody along the way?
Right.
It's really neat. So I remember that show, and I believe it's the same one you're talking about. We showed up there, and it was on like the second or third floor.
Yes. Yep.
And I was like, oh my God, how am I going to get my drum set up there? And I talked with might have been your band, with one of the opening drummers. I said, would you mind if I used your kit?
Oh,
Because
might have been me. It's possibly it was.
this is just going to be a problem. And it wasn't all that big of a place to begin with.
No, it was not.
But
was
getting
it the
gear-
Warsaw?
No. God damn. I don't know. It was right near a police station. I remember that because I remember the cop cars out in front.
It's
But
Brooklyn.
a-
It's everything is near a police
Right.
station.
But then you go upstairs, you go up the steps. It's like these steep steps, and it's very small. I can't remember what the name of it is. It's on the tip of my tongue. I just don't remember.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
long ago.
I think that was actually, unfortunately, probably the last Machines of Grace show that ever happened.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you know how it is. It's tough to get people together. Zach was living in Florida at the time. There was just a lot of stuff going on, and we couldn't quite get it to a point where let's get together and go out and try to do something. It was difficult, and plus trying to finance things. It's takes a lot of money to take your product out on the road to the masses. So,
Oh, yeah.
but anyhow, that was a fun recording. We were happy to make that CD. That was actually something myself and Zach Stevens and the guitarist Matt Leff were in a band in Boston called Wicked Witch, and we had written
that
all
too.
those. There you go. That's it.
It's the
Yep.
compilation version. Yep.
Yep. We had written all those songs back then, but never really fully recorded them. So years
Right.
later. And then there was a Wicked Witch out of Florida, which was threatening to sue us. So we come up with this name, Machines of Grace, and did that record. But it was cool to get that stuff properly recorded, and I thought everybody did a great job, and it really came out well.
Yeah, yeah, it was a really good album. I was really glad to see you guys too. I didn't know who Machines of Brace was at the time, and I'm like, oh my god, look who it is up on playing there, and it was really really cool stuff. So it was a shame though. And then the guitar player, he passed away, right?
Matt Leff.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt Leff died of cancer. Oh God, back in 21, I believe it was.
Hmm.
Um, just, a sad deal. It always is. But Matt was an amazing guitarist. He came out of GIT and he had auditioned for Ronnie James Dio when he was out there. And apparently he was like number two, I think Rowan Roberts. Is that right? Rowan Robertson?
Oh, Rowan Robertson. Yeah. So we're
Yeah.
talking like in 89, 90, like around the time of Lock Out the Wolves.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So this kid got the gig in front of Matt, but Dio, I think Wendy Dio had stayed in contact with Matt for a number of years, and just she was kind of keeping track of him and stuff. But Matt was awesome, and we did a lot of cool jamming together. It's interesting because we wrote those songs and we did a bunch of shows, but some of the funnest moments I had with Matt was just him and I jamming. And I had this old cassette deck and a couple of old PV boards set up in our rehearsal room, and I recorded everything. That became the impetus for Alta Reign. So there was all these riffs and stuff that we never did anything with, and then Matt got sick, and I said, "Hey, would you mind if I took some of this music and did something with it? I've got some ideas." So he's all over the first Alta Reign record, Mother's Day, and several of the songs on Upon the Horizon also. So
Oh wow.
yeah. But he gave me the green light and just said, "Hey, just keep me posted on what you're doing and how it's going and blah blah blah." And he slowly, but before you knew it, he was so sick that and then we lost him. But just a sad deal. But a good friend of mine, great guitarist. I really learned a lot from him, and hey, his music lives on. So
Yeah, and like you said, now it's in the Alta Reign music. And how did you get the Alta Reign band together? Because I didn't know. Well, actually, you did write me about the band. I think when the album came out last year. But how did you guys get together?
So as I mentioned, I had all these ideas that Matt and I had recorded. I've got like 25 90-minute cassettes here full of just the two of us jamming.
Right. Wow.
Zach Stevens was the vocalist, and
Oh, really?
Grace. So every once in a while, Zach would be in there and he'd be singing some, made up words and singing melodies over. But it was like stuff like that really gave me ideas for songs. So all these years later, I had a friend here locally. His name is Tommy Cook, guitarist, and we had a party here at my house, and Tommy was going through kind of a rough time in his life, and I said, "Hey, why don't you come up after I get home from the TSO tour, and I've got some ideas." I said, this might be interesting. So this was my first venture into like really being the leader, doing all the lyrics and the arranging, presenting the ideas, doing the producing, blah, blah, blah. So Tommy and I were the two that first got together, and I said, "Tommy, I got this idea. Here's this guitar riff, here's my vocal idea. Here are the lyrics." And he really latched right onto it. And next thing you know, we had a couple songs. I brought in another friend of mine, Kevin McCarthy, on bass. And then at the time, we were actually doing a cover band called Sun Sonic, and the two other members, Zach Hamilton and Colin Holloway, guitarist and keyboard player. These guys were local guys that were super talented. And I said, "Hey, why don't you come on up and let's, see if you can contribute to this." When COVID hit, obviously anything live stopped.
Right, yeah.
So I said, "Guys, let's just put the Sun Sonic thing on the shelf and focus on writing a record." So I sat down here in my studio and taught myself how to learn Logic and figured out how to do this. And everybody basically recorded parts at home. And once things cleared up, the guys showed up, we did vocals. And then, before you knew it, we had an album. And
Right.
I reached out to Jane Mangini, who's a keyboardist in Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Mhm.
And her and I had talked countless times about doing something together. And I said, give this stuff a listen and, tell me what you think. And she loved it. And she sent me back these keyboard parts. I was like, oh my God, that's the missing link. That's exactly what we need.
Mm.
And the six of us made it happen. And Alta Reign, Mother's Day, first record came out in 2021. And it was quite a cool moment for myself and everybody to do this. And we're very, very proud of the record. I think there's some really strong material on there. But local guys, people I've known here, Tommy and Kevin I've known for 30 plus years. And the other two guys were just like, well, they're young, but they're really good. Let's bring them in here and see what they got. And it really worked out well.
Yeah. Yeah, I was listening to both of the albums and they're actually really, really good. And if people like, the stuff that the other bands that you've been in, like Savatage and Metal Church and all those other bands, there's a mixture of all that stuff in there. And then I even think the newer album takes a more of like a progressive turn as well. I think the first album's a little bit more hard rock and like more like power metal-ish, and the new one seems to go a little bit more progressive.
Yeah.
So really like both albums, and like I said, anybody likes all the other bands you've been in, they'll like this one too. And something I was going to ask you. Oh, when I was looking up the band members, I did notice because like you and your keyboard player, it mentions what band you guys were in, and some of the other guys it didn't mention anybody. So I was kind of curious, like where did you get those guys from? So that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. What were you covering? What were the songs that you guys were covering? Was there a certain thing or just random?
Well, it was called Sunsonic, and we were really trying to just do a lot of the Sunset Strip type of bands, Van
Okay.
Halen, Dokken. But we threw in, Judas Priest, some Dio, God, Scorpions, Poison, just really good fun rock and roll,
Yeah.
guitar, melodic, really vocal heavy stuff. Tommy and Colin and Zach could sing together so well. So I was like, all right, let's do some real vocal heavy stuff. We did some Def Leppard, a bunch of Kiss, but yeah, it was just a bunch of fun rock and roll. And where I am in upstate New York, there has always been a fairly good, healthy music scene here.
Mm.
And there was not a band like this. It was just mainly a bunch of classic rock, a bunch of, older people still playing the same stuff that they played since the 70s and 80s.
Right.
Well, we want to hear Marshall Tucker Band again, brother. Come on, let's do it.
Hair of the dog, all of the
Free
above.
bird.
But we
Free bird.
we decided it's like, let's just do something different. We want to do something with a different energy, something that's a little more fun. We got off to a great start. And then, like I said, COVID hit and it was like,
Yeah.
put that on the shelf. And it's still on the shelf. So it was fun while it lasted.
Now you guys all recorded from home, like you mentioned. Did the other guys have problems? Like, did they know how to record and do all that stuff? Because I know we have a band together, me and Lou, and some of the guys in the band, they didn't know how to, do all the equipment. So we had to show them and teach them everything. So how did that work, you guys?
So, well, like I said, I did not know anything about recording. I got Logic on my MacBook Pro here, and it's like, okay, I got to figure this out. I spent months down in my studio here making every mistake possible, but figuring it out along the way.
Yeah.
Tommy had his own home studio. Kevin on bass had his own home studio. Jane's got her own home studio. The other two guys, like I said, once things kind of loosened up, we got them up here to do vocals and stuff like that.
Mm.
Jane really covered the majority of the keyboard work. Zach added some stuff in a couple songs up here. And Tommy Cook did the majority of all the guitar work, and Colin Holloway added a couple things too. But those two were mainly, we used them mainly for the vocals.
Mm-hmm.
So we figured out a way to get it done. It's like, it's the way of the world now. Everybody does stuff remotely, and you get your system set up properly, you can really do some nice work. So it took us a little while, but we got it figured out.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lou. I gotta look up something quick.
I was gonna say, I think your drum tone on the recent LP is incredible, and the fact that you use I admit I use GarageBand, so like if you were to show me Logic, I can't help it. I'm a simple person, but I mean, I hear Logic is one of the best ones. So I'm assuming that the kit that you recorded your drums with is the acoustic kit that we're seeing in front of you right now, since this is your home studio.
You are wrong. So,
Oh, I like
so,
being wrong. Okay, go ahead.
so what the deal was, I have a full V drum kit also. And like with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, we've been using V drums live for the longest time, along with acoustic cymbals. I use Zildjian cymbals. When I first started learning how to use Logic, editing the digital drums was just much easier for me at the time. So I have a really good drum sound out of my V drum setup. My engineer in Boston, his name is Joe Clapp. He works for his studio is called Ultrasound. So, I sent him these kit tracks and I said, I really like these drum sounds, but what can we do with this? So he actually had an initial recording of this Pearl kit that you see behind me. So he actually sampled the Pearl kit and we mixed the two sounds together. And he added a little bit more, I think, to the snare drum to beef it up a little bit. But
Oh.
I mean, thank you. And I'm really proud of the drum sound. I think it sounds killer. So
You tricked me because I honestly thought it was going to be an acoustic kit. So
no, no, there is some of
usually
the
I can hear
acoustic.
it.
Well, there's some of the acoustic sound in there, but like I said, the drum kit sound that I came up with the V drums, it's got a really, really nice snare and kick sound. It's very, very real.
Yeah. Yeah.
The toms we had to warm them up a little bit, but at the end of the day, I really liked what we came up with. It sounds different.
Mm.
It really sounds full. And for the progressive type of music we were doing, I was like, this is perfect. I absolutely love it. So, but thanks. I'm glad you like that.
Yeah, wow, you've completely bamboozled me. I really thought that was an acoustic kit. I'm like, wow, this sounds so good, and like, in a day where everyone relies on electric kits, it's nice to hear that I mean, you being a veteran for as long as you've been being as long as you've been playing, you were able to somehow make it sound organic and sound full and sound acoustic. And now we know why. So, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yep.
That's
Well,
cool.
I'll be honest. I mean, it took us some time, just going back and forth and, hey, can you add a little bit? Can you pull some of this out? The electronic drums are what they are. You can usually hear a little bit of that electronic clicky sound in there. So, we had to produce around it a little bit.
Right.
But, initially I was really happy with the drum sound on Mother's Day, and okay, so let's go into the second record a little bit smarter, a little bit better at what we're doing, and let's see if we can improve on it. And I think we did. So
I
thanks
hear
again.
I went through the same problem too. I mean, the interface that I was using for our first album was horrible. I mean, it was just basically an XLR into a USB into into the computer, and it sounded like so. Our singer, who's also our engineer, was like, "Do you have an interface?" I said, "What's an interface?" And he's just like, he express sent me one, so I was able to record from home without any issue from then. And he's like, "Just make sure you don't go past the green."
Yeah,
So there's so many things to learn when you're doing it on your own, but that's great
absolutely.
that a good engineer can make anything sound like $1 million on records. So
Yep.
kudos to you for um just having the right tools and the right people to do this album with. I mean, I'm still listening to it. I'm loving it.
Thanks. Thanks. I
Good stuff.
appreciate that. We've gotten a very good response from everybody who has heard the record. It doesn't sound like anybody, but you can hear all kinds of influences in there. And I think that in itself is kind of an achievement. There's so many bands out there. It's hard to not sound like somebody.
Oh yeah.
But I think the combination of players and the approach that we took to this, we came up with something that's really pretty original. So yeah, I'm real happy with it. Real happy
And
with it.
it has that danger element of like some of like the classic hard rock and metal bands that I feel like a lot of bands today don't have. Like a lot of them, resort to like breakdowns or chugga chugga riffs. But no, it's like this is something that it's new, it's modern, but it's also classic in the sense that it makes you feel something as you're going along. It's like you're going on a journey, like, oh, what's gonna happen next? Like that's the one thing I feel like is missing from music. But this is why I write metal songs and not pop music. So whatever.
We came into this like, we're just going to write some music and see what it sounds like. And at the end of the day, it's like, wow, we sound like a band.
Mm.
Yeah.
And with all the influences coming in, I think one thing that sets Alta Reign apart, if you could even frame it that way, is the vocals. We came up with some really good melodies, and the guys really took my lyrics and ideas and just ran with them. They were awesome.
Mm.
Coming up with 12 different ideas for each, okay, let's write a bridge part. Here's the lyrics. Well, let's try this. Well, let's try this. So we really threw a lot of ideas around before we settled on the final product. But the way those guys sang together, I mean, we had comparisons to like Pablo Cruz and Toto, to Iron Maiden and Ghost and everything in between. It's like, well, that's pretty cool, actually. I'm not going to argue with any of that stuff. So, but I think the vocals really lended to a lot of those comparisons and just why the band sounds as original as it does.
If you don't mind me asking, how big of an influence was Jeff Porcaro on you?
Oh man, I mean, when I was young, the first Total record came out in what, 79, 80?
78, I think, maybe around that time. Yeah.
Hold the Line and
Right.
all that stuff. I remember playing that stuff in cover bands back then when I was just getting out of high school. So, Jeff Porcaro that band was like this all-star studio band. And when you listen to those records, you're like, man, these guys are really good. Even though Porcaro at the time, I mean, he wasn't like Neil Peart, but his groove and his sound was just so right. And
Yeah.
then he comes out with Rosanna, and you're like, how am I going to play that drum beat? Just it took me the longest time to get that down.
I mean, what I find fascinating about him is that he played on the biggest selling album of all time, Thriller, and he played on over 3,000 records. And like, I was at my brother-in-law's house for Labor Day, and he loves yacht rock. So all of a sudden, like, what comes on? Boz Scaggs's Lido Shuffle, and I'm like listening to the drums. I'm like, that's Jeff Porcaro playing. I didn't realize it, so I looked it up, and I'm like, my God, there's nothing this man couldn't do. So it's cool to hear you mention Jeff's playing. I mean, I guess I just recently become a fan of his work too. So
there's so many of these. I mean, there's so many great players out there, but just thinking back when I was younger, Toto was one of those bands that was, when I was younger, it was Kiss and Aerosmith and Blue Oyster Cult. And then somebody introduced me to Journey and Toto and stuff like that. It's like, oh wow, I guess there's more out there than just these three bands. So the musicality of a lot of these other bands, really, you start paying attention to it once you get a little older. And once you get a little better at your instrument, it's like, okay, now I'm kind of following what these guys are doing, and no, they're not on stage, spinning their head or whatever, but they're really good. And these songs are a hit for a reason. So yeah, it was funny, just this evening, I ran into a friend of mine who, when I was young, like I mentioned, it was those three bands, Kiss, Aerosmith, and Blue Oyster Cult, 24/7. That was it for me. I met this older cat. His name was Frank Dana, guitar player. He was 5 years older than me. And he turns me on to like this fusion stuff, Jeff Beck Wired. I was like, oh my God, like the drumming in that seems like it's upside down and inside out. Yeah. But it just opened my mind up, my ears to a whole different style of drumming. And then I really started digging into that kind of stuff. Jean-Luc Ponty, electric violinist, the one album he did with Steve Smith on drums, fantastic. Gino Vanelli, there's a lot of that kind of that really kind of, it was almost like progressive pop music, but yeah, it really opened my eyes to a lot of different styles. So, but Picaro was definitely one of them from back in the day, and covering that stuff in the bands when I was doing the clubs around here when I was a kid. That stuff was a lot of fun to play.
Very cool. Wayne, back to you. Sorry.
When I was listening to the latest album, up upon the horizon,
Yep.
and you talking about how many different styles you like. There's one song on there when I got to it, I'm like, what the heck is this? Have no fear.
Mm.
Very country sounding. What was the idea of that? Because that's the most different sounding song on that whole entire album, I think.
Yes, yes. So that song is the outlier, but it is one of my favorite songs. Um, so this this idea came about in, I think it was the year 2000. And the idea came to me because my dad had just been diagnosed with cancer.
Nah.
And I was like, ugh, it's that punch in the gut.
No.
At the same time, he had this old dog that was his loyal best friend, and the dog was also failing.
Mm.
And that line, my best friend's best friend is dying,
Mm.
just popped into my head, and it stuck there.
All right.
So that line also came along with the bass line in the chorus of that song is like Okie from Muskogee by Merle Haggard. When I was a kid, I grew up on country music. My parents listened to that
Okay.
stuff all the time. So,
Yeah.
so that lyric and that melody kind of stuck in my head. And when we started writing for the second record, I had Kevin McCarthy here, and I said, I want to write a progressive country song. And he said, well, what is that? And I was like, I don't know. Well, we're going to find out. So here's my idea. And him and I just started putting this together. So the lyrics really, it's about losing your dog. Every dog owner knows that you're going to come to that day when you got to let the dog go.
All right. Yeah.
And I just believe, if everything goes right in our lives, we'll see them again someday. So that's kind of the gist of the lyrics in the song. But as the whole thing developed, I brought Tommy Cook up here. We worked on the vocals, and he just did such a great job singing this song.
Mm-hmm.
The other guys all chipped in with the harmonies, developing that stuff. My friend Joe Clapp that I mentioned, I reached out to him and I said, Joe, I got this song, and I can hear banjo in this song. He goes, hey, I just got a banjo. So you know what else I can hear? Steel guitar. He says, well, I got a steel guitar right here. And I said, well, I'm going to send you this song, and you just write some stuff and send it to me, and let's see if it fits. So what he sent back to me was perfect. And really the tracks that he initially sent to me are the ones that made it on the record.
Huh.
But, everybody really, really dug into this song, and I think it's something special.
Yeah.
Jane did a fantastic job with the piano and the chord progressions and stuff that she laid in behind that. The organ music at the end, the piano stuff is fantastic. But that's one thing with Alta Reign I wasn't trying to be pretentious with this when we started the band, but I call we're a progressive band.
Mm.
And that allows us to basically do anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
There's no rules, you're progressive. You can, whichever direction you want to go for it. It's your thing. So Have No Fear was something that I just really, really felt strongly about. And when we got done with that song, it's like, man, I think we really have something here. Everybody loves this song.
Yeah.
I've pushed it to as many people as I could think of to try to make something happen. But I think eventually this song will catch fire.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely it was a shock, but it's a good shock because it gave you a little bit of a break from the metal and stuff like that. And then when
Sure.
it got to that, something new to hear from you guys.
So,
you think you go ahead?
Most people when they heard the song, same reaction as you. It's like,
Yeah.
What was that?
I thought I was on listening to another album because I'm listening on the.
So now you're going to go back
Amazon.
and you're going to listen to it again.
Yeah.
You can hear all of us in there. It's Alta
Right. Yeah.
doing this song, but yeah, we took a little bit of a chance on that one, and I'm glad we did.
Then you also had the nod to Blue Oyster Cult at the end as well.
Yes,
Fear the Reaper.
that was something funny when we were finishing out that song and Tommy was playing guitar and he did something and said, "That's Don't Fear the Reaper. Play that again." I'm going to use that on there. So, and it makes perfect sense. You know, it
Yeah.
fits right with the theme of the song and everything. So, plus my love for Bloister Call, it was a nice little homage to them. So
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
cool.
they're awesome. Actually, one of our other co-hosts, I'm a huge fan of them too, but he's like a really huge fan. And we just had Albert Bouchard on the show a few months ago.
Oh
Really
wow.
cool, really cool
Albeit a
guy.
very bad signal, but we
Oh
still
yeah,
had him.
we still had him.
Yeah, they were one of the first concerts I ever saw. It was the Spectres tour, Binghamton, New York. Angel was opening up for them, and I think it was 1979. And yeah, it was awesome. I'm just a kid, going, "Oh man, I want to do that. I want to be up there someday." And
Yeah.
actually, I was up there one day with Trans-Siberian Orchestra. When we did our Beethoven tour, we played in that arena,
Oh really?
and I went up and sat in the same seat that I think I sat and watched Blois Call and was like, "Wow, talk about things coming full circle. This is pretty cool."
Right.
So yeah, good
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh yeah,
Stuff.
definitely. I got to see them a few times. They played up here. I'm on Long Island, and they played free shows here every once in a while. And I saw a free show, and then they did another show in Patchogue. But they always put on a really great show, and just a great band. Have you listened to the new stuff lately? Have you listened to the past? What was the album called? Symbol something.
Oh yes, I
I can't
haven't.
remember the name of it.
The
Yes,
symbol
Symbol
remains. The
Remains.
symbol
Thank you.
remains.
Yes, I think it's very good.
Yeah, it's a really great comeback album. It's awesome.
It really is, and I mean, those bands, and rightly so, they cannot escape their past. They've got to play the hit songs,
Oh
and
yeah.
then they come out with these great records that nobody wants to hear. They just want to hear the hit songs.
Mm.
But it was really refreshing to get this record and listen to it and go, wow, these guys still have it.
Mhm.
This is Blois to Cult. It's original. It's new. Um, Jules on drums. Great job.
Oh yeah.
Great job. So yeah, I was really happy for those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see now. Back to the first album. It's called Mother's Day. Is there anything behind that title of the album?
Um, yeah, so this was also one of these riffs, one of these. We actually kind of had a song somewhat completed with Matt Leff and Zach Stevens when I was out in Boston. I think the title of that back then was called Until Then or something like that. But there was just this great riff that Matt had within that song. But there was another one of these jam sessions that I mentioned earlier that went on for like 10 minutes. In the middle of this jam session, Matt played this one guitar riff all of 10 or 12 seconds.
Hmm.
And he never played it again. But it was just the coolest riff. And it became the chorus riff in that song.
Hmm.
And here again, it was one of those riffs that I had bouncing around in my head for like 25 years. And I had the title. And yeah, it's about Mother Earth just finally being sick of us and shaking us off at some point because she probably should. But no, that was heavily influenced by an idea that we had started out in Boston way back when. And it's funny, the name of the band, I was talking to a friend of mine about the record, and it's like I said, I've got this song called Mother's Day, and this is what I want to call the record, but we can't come up with a name for the band. And she says, "Well, isn't your mother's name Alta?" Bing. Yes, it is. So Alta means higher,
Okay.
elevated.
Hmm.
And so I started researching, the meaning behind my name and my sister's name, Terry. And if you look in the right spot, it means ruler, leader, blah, blah, blah. So the word reign came into play and just fit so well. Alta Reign, perfect. I presented it to the guys and they were like, "That's it." So yeah, that song actually inspired the name of the band, which these days coming up with a name for your band is almost as harder than making a record,
Right. Yeah. Like, what hasn't somebody already used? It's
Yes,
just
exactly. But Mother's Day, when we got to the middle section of the song where it breaks down and gets slower, I played this for Joel Hoekstra. And I've been playing with Joel for quite a long time now and know his style. And I said, dude, would you like to throw a solo on this section? And his solo in that song is perfect.
Hmm.
It's so good. Such feel. He's such a good player. But yeah, then Jane, obviously she contributed the keyboards to it. Me and Kim from TSO also contributed some keyboards to that song. And then Matt Leff, his lady, Wendy Drown, she contributed the female vocals in the middle section too. So
Hmm.
a lot of people involved in that song, but that was one I had kicking around in my head for a long time. And when I finally got it finished, I was really happy with that. So
Hmm. Yeah, good stuff. Lou. Oh, I think Lou is frozen.
Sorry, my mic was muted. I was
Uh,
just
well, no, I see you going like all
no,
over the place, but you're all right. Go ahead.
no, I know. Well, I make sure I'm taking care of the chats and things like that while you're chatting it up.
No, I
So
mean your connection looks like it's going shitty again, but you're
yeah, I
fine.
think
Just
it's time to
continue.
get it. Thank you. I think it's time to get a new refurbished MacBook. Anyways, uh, so you mentioned before that, because again, I'm a gearhead. So you said that you use Zildjians,
Yep.
and I know I've seen you live before with TSO on 3 different occasions. Wayne and I only live about an hour away from each other on Long Island, so I've seen TSO at the Beacon, the Garden, and the Nassau Coliseum, and each time was better than the one before.
oh
So,
wow.
I mean, in terms of equipment, for live setting, I mean, are you still pretty much like using the same name brands that you always have? Have you changed anything up? Are there any companies that you want to promote?
Well, Vader drumsticks, I began using those in the mid 80s when I lived out in New England. They're from Randolph, Mass. Um, a friend of mine, drummer, his name is Dave DeCenzo. He's actually a teacher at Berkeley now, I think. Huge influence on me, but he used Vader and turned me on to these. I've been using Vader 3A drumsticks ever since the mid 80s. I just love them. They're perfect for what I do. I got a Pearl drum endorsement in, God, what year was this? 1998. I went out to the NAMM show, and Mike Ferris, one of the reps at Pearl, was a big Savatage fan. So he was like, dude, I'd love to sign you up. I'm in. Peter Chris used to play Pearl drums. I want to play Pearl drums. But for the longest time,
Because they only play the best.
they only play the best if you want the best. Um, but so cymbal wise, I used pasty cymbals for when I first joined Savatage in '94. I was using Sabian, I believe. Then once we became really popular again in Europe, I got hooked back up with pasty cymbals. So I used them for quite a while. When you saw us at the Garden, I was probably still using pasty.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of my tour managers was actually good friends with the people at Zildjian. And they came out to see a TSO show in Rhode Island and brought 2 bags of cymbals and said, when you get done with the tour, take these home and check them out and let us know what you think. And I said, well, I know what I think. I'll give you a call when I get back home, and we'll get hooked up here. So, but they've been fantastic. All these companies are really, really cool. Everything we need, they're right there for it. The Pearl hardware, I love it. It is so durable and it just looks great. The V-drum equipment that we use, that all came about because when we first started touring in TSO in theaters, you can really turn the real drums down so much. And V-drums just became a way for us to keep our sound a little bit more in check. We realized once TSO started to become more popular, we realized, it isn't just a bunch of young people in that audience. We've got to cater to young people and the older people who are out there. We're not going to rip their head off with volume. And controlling the volume of the drums was very, very important. So we got a V-drum kit. Paul O'Neill loved the sound of them. They kind of became our sound and our look. And honestly, now with the tours that we do, doing 2 shows a day, 3 days in a row, there is very little time for changing drum heads and all of that. You set the V drums up, plug them in, doom, 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 doom. Okay, we're good. Next,
Right.
and in some cases, we literally get the show set up and ready to go right before doors are ready to open for the matinee. So there's
Wow.
really no time for this. Just works out better for us. And I've really gotten used to playing the drums. I've tweaked the sound to a point where I think they sound really, really good in the arena. So, but yeah, that's what I use. Also, TKL. TKL is a drum case company. Friend Tom Doherty. He does a real good job of taking care of us, whatever we need. So awesome. It's so important to have these companies touring with Metal Church. I'd go to Europe. I need this Pro kit and I need this set of cymbals and blah, blah, blah. I'd get there and boom, ready to go. Everything's right there, so having these companies at the ready, pretty much no matter where you go is just so important. So, but I'm real happy with it. I love my drums. I love the Pro drums, the hardware, everything about them.
I was gonna mention, thank you for bringing it up. Like, when you're touring the States, it's a matter of bringing the equipment, in the trucks and getting them from city to city. So, like expenses include like gas and lodging. But then, when you're touring Europe, it's like it almost kind of doesn't make sense to bring over the equipment from the States over there because, well, for one thing, for guitar players, there's the difference in currency, like the inputs for electricity, but also, with drums, they're not exactly lightweight. So you're saying that like when you're touring Europe, you like you could just call Pearl and be like, hey, we're playing this day. Can you bring a kit there for me to play? Does it work like that for you?
Yeah. There's backline companies all throughout Europe with, just kind of like the backline companies that are here, like SAR and, some places like that. There's several of them. I can't think of the names right now, but yeah, Europe has a number of those also. I mean, obviously there's a lot of American bands that tour a lot in Europe, so it's kind of a necessity for these companies to have this equipment over there. But yeah, it's just like I said, it's always just nice knowing that these companies are pretty much wherever you need them, and you need something, you got it. So it works out great.
Good stuff.
To your point, guitarist can bring his guitar with him on the plane. It's not like I can pack my drum set and check it in at the airport. It's a little
Why not?
difficult. Hey, I'll tell you something now. When we went over to Europe to do the Wacken Festival in 2015 with TSO, and we did the Savatage set, and then we did the TSO show with actually both touring groups playing on the main stages at the same time. What a crazy event. Unbelievable we even pulled that off. But Paul O'Neill, being Paul O'Neill, he insisted that, we're taking our TSO set with us. So they slow boated that thing over there and it looked awesome. It was so cool to see, what we do over here in the States, literally doing that exact thing over there. What an achievement for him. He always dreamed of doing that, having both bands play together at the same time. And him, along with the management and the technical team, they pulled it off. So it was a really cool moment.
Yeah. Are we ever going to see like a live DVD of any of that stuff? Like the Savatage or TSO? Nothing, huh?
I have no idea.
No.
Honestly, I've been asked that 1,000 times.
Mm.
I've asked the question myself a lot, and I don't ask anymore.
Yeah. Why
I would hope so. I would hope so at some point,
Yeah.
someday, something will come out, but something is tangled up there, and I'm,
it's
it'll get
beyond
sorted out eventually.
And
All right, yeah.
don't get us wrong, we're grateful for what we get, definitely. It's just I know like Wayne, for as long as I known him, which is over 20 years at this point, has always been such a Savatage fan. Then he would go through do you see the CD collection behind him?
That's all
This man will
Savatage
go
CDs now.
to the end of now Savatage CDs, but this man will go to the ends of the earth to find what he wants. Me,
Yeah.
I go as far as Amazon than Discogs. I don't have that much
So
drive as Wayne does.
Wayne is a real fan, is what you're saying,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I did not say he was a real fan. I just say he's a crazy fan. But
I'm not that crazy.
Hey, I tell you, the thing that I saw, there was a post you posted your show and you were holding a CD, but you were wearing a Savatage shirt.
Mhm.
One one of the ones from Japan Live.
Yes,
I was
it
like,
was. Yeah.
I gotta send this guy a note. That's what really got my attention was the Savatage shirt. It's like I gotta reach out to this guy and see if he wants to check my stuff out. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. I just bought that because actually, I wanted to. Let me ask you one other thing first before I get to that. What was it like when they asked you to or to use the electronic drum kit? I mean, who asked you to use the electronic drum kit?
Well, it was Paul in his
Okay.
management company, and I mean, it was obvious to me too. It's like I can only play so light.
Hmm.
Like, I am not like I'm not like a caveman when I play, but I hit, you
Right,
know.
right. Yeah.
Um, and Paul did not want me to be really restrained. He wanted me to play the way I play, but we were having a trouble with the volume. So I understood what the situation was.
Yeah.
Uh, when we first started using V drums, we honestly, I think it was an R8 drum kit or whatever, with the small, super hard plastic pads. Oh my God,
Yes.
it killed my hand.
Terrible, terrible.
Terrible, terrible. But we quickly remedied that and got the new kit with the mesh heads. And, it took a little while to just adjust to it, but I spent a lot of time with the module just tweaking the sounds and just trying to create a drum sound that sounded like a drum set.
Hmm.
And yeah, it took me a while, but I think we got there, and even more so now.
Yeah.
Most people now can't tell if that's electric
No,
or
like I said, you fooled me. So
yeah.
mm, yeah, so that's good now because I tried playing on those things. I'm like, I can't. I just can't. I just like the feel of the acoustic kit. And
Sure.
one day I would like to have the electronic kit because it would be a lot easier to save room. One thing, and then easier to plug in and all that stuff too. But I'm staying with the
Hey,
acoustic, I
I
guess.
I will recommend, and I am not endorsed by Roland, but we've used their equipment for a long time. It is so durable,
Mm,
and some of these drum kits have such good sounds in them. I mean,
right,
it's like I don't know how they do it, you
right.
know. These new cymbals, you can swell on them, you can choke, you can play the kit like a real acoustic drum kit,
Mm,
drum and cymbal. So, hey, you get what you pay for. If you invest in a decent kit, you will probably be very happy.
oh
And
yeah,
it'll something that'll last you for years.
yeah. All right, now what I was going to ask you, because you mentioned the shirt, and this is why I got the shirt because the vinyl edition of this album came out, Japan Live 1994, and
Yep.
you were on this vinyl and on this show. What was it like? This is your first show with Savatage, right? This year?
Not my first show, but my
Okay,
first recording.
that's what I mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What was that like
Yeah.
being with Savatage during that time?
So this was quite the roller coaster ride. When I first joined Savatage, it was March of '94, and they had gone through the loss of Chris Oliva.
Right.
John was no longer singing. Zach was the lead singer. The band was in complete turmoil. They just got flipped right upside down with
Mm,
Chris's loss.
right.
And I called Zach in March of '94 just to see, hey, you okay? What's going on? What's Savatage going to do? Do you want to try the Wicked Witch thing again? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, Jeff, Savatage is going to continue on and they want you to drum. And I'm
Mm,
like, what? So here I am. I moved back to Horseheads, New York, and sitting in my living room going, wait a minute, what'd you say? And he says,
mm.
no, they heard the demo that we did and they've seen some pictures and when can you get down to Florida? I was like, holy crap, I can't believe this just happened. So I go to Florida, I meet John, I meet Paul. They're actually mixing the Handful of Rain CD when I get there.
Ah,
And John, the album was finished.
right.
So they basically told me, go back home and learn everything. So I came home and quit my construction job and just started digging into the catalog and learning all the music. So friends of mine, Rob Canavino and Tim Mallory, live here in my town, and they were members of the band Overkill.
Oh, okay.
Overkill had just toured with Savatage in Europe, so they were all kind of friendly and knew each other. So a couple months later, I hear this rumor that, hey, Savatage, I think they're getting their original drummer back. And I was like, oh man, really? So I called Zach and I didn't hear back. And I called Johnny and I didn't hear back. And I called the management and I didn't hear back. And I'm thinking, damn it, I was that close,
Right, right.
It's like the wind just went right out of my sails. And finally, Zach called me back and he says, dude, hang on. It's a record company thing. They're kind of freaked out about the member changes and blah, blah, blah. So Steve Wacholtz actually did the video for Handful of Rain
Mhm.
with the band. He did a photo shoot with the band, which I also did a photo shoot with the band. There are copies of that CD somewhere with my face and his name and his picture and my name that it got all screwed up. But at the
Right.
end of the day, Zach called me up and I think it was August and he said, hey, get down here. We got a tour booked and we're going to start rehearsing and you're in. So anyhow, we started the tour, played in Brooklyn, New York at L'Amour's. And the whole thing with that Japan Live CD, what was in the balance was they had invested a bunch of money into the band to come over there and do this recording. They were still kind of concerned about the drumming position.
Mm.
And Paul came out to the show at L'Amour's and I got on the bus after the show and he said, Jeff, you're in, you're going to Japan. You are officially the guy. And I was just so happy and relieved because up to that point, I still wasn't quite sure.
Right, right.
But anyhow, we finished out the tour in the States. We went to Japan and what a great time. It was just so awesome. And here I am, it's like, wow, my first tour and I'm actually doing a live album with the band. This is kind of nuts, but it worked out great. Skolnick was great. Obviously Zach, you can hear him on that record. He was just in top form. He was so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And John Oliva, John Oliva came back into the band as a rhythm guitarist and keyboardist and backup vocalist. But soon that became where John and Zach were sharing vocals. But that Japan Live record, that was just such a moment for me. I was like, I went through what I went through the previous months, just whether I was going to actually be there or not.
Mm.
But I was also, I knew at this point in my life, I was 32 and I thought, God, if I can just do a tour and do a record, I'll take that as a win. I'll be happy.
Nice.
And I got both of them out of the way in the matter of a couple months. And yeah, it was a long road to get there, but that was so cool.
Yeah.
And then here we are all these years later.
I wanted to mention to you at one point, Wayne and we were talking about doing a covers EP with our band Severed Angel, and his recommendation was Chance off Handful of Rain, which I was very excited to do that.
Can you cover it vocally?
I'm not the singer. I'm the guitar player.
Neither one of us are the singer.
Hey, sure, do your own version of it. Why not? It's a heavy song. It really is. I mean,
Yeah.
when you strip some of the orchestration out of it, I mean, it is a heavy song, especially the verses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
It's
that's why I picked that one. We'll get to it eventually. I don't know. We just actually finished the Def Leppard cover for a contest thing that's going on by Sweetwater. So hopefully, that something works out with that. But
I
we'll get to it.
I do like the name of the band. That's good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was it's another Angel band. Speaking of hard names to pick for a band, it's like what are you gonna pick? But he came up with Severed Angels, so it stuck.
It works.
Yeah. Have you ever
Can't do nothing about it now?
No, it's too late now. I got 3 albums. Have you ever talked to Steve since he's been out of the band, or have you ever met up with him at some point? Or
Yeah.
Did you go to his gun shop?
yeah.
I have not. So when we started that Handful of Rain tour, we did I think it was Fort Lauderdale and then Orlando and then Tampa. And coming back into Tampa to do this show, having lost Chris Oliva recently, prior to that, there was a lot of emotion there. I was just, I'm the new guy. I'm kind of the outsider here,
Yeah.
and people were so upset and so happy that the band was continuing. Um, I always admired John for having the spine that he did. I mean, he took a lot. It took a lot for him to get through some of
Mm,
that,
right.
and Johnny especially, because Johnny and Chris Lever were best friends. But anyhow, at the show in Tampa, I met Steve, and I introduced myself, and we talked for a little bit, and I can't remember exactly what he said to me, something like, "Hey, do me right and play my parts properly," or something to that effect. Like, of course, I'm, you know,
Yeah.
I am in no position to just go off and do my own thing yet. I need to play the songs properly. But I remember talking with him, and I said, I know this just sounds weird, but thank you for stepping out. you know, and this is the opportunity I've been waiting for, and I feel really good about this. And he says, "Hey man, go up there and kick ass and have a good show." So he
Mm,
was supportive. He stepped out of the band for all of the right reasons.
mm,
The band had changed so much. He didn't feel that Savatage was Savatage anymore. And
right.
and kudos to him. He at that point, Savatage had been through enough to quit 4 or 5 times,
Right.
and they stuck it out. And I'm glad that they did. I'm glad that they did. But Steve was, he was a gentleman. He's come out to see TSO times we played. He's fine. We get along fine. We've conversed a couple times over the phone on, once in a while you hear something stupid online. Somebody says something stupid about something stupid, and it's like,
Mm.
Steve. He goes, Jeff, I know. Click. So, you know,
Yeah.
but we're good. We're good.
Oh, very
It's the
cool.
internet. Everyone says something stupid about something stupid.
It's amazing, and it becomes front page news just like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the
Way of
times
the
that we're
world.
living in. Yes, exactly. So what is there anything going on with Sabotage at all? I mean, like I know John's like in some kind of he's like losing weight and all this stuff and things are going on with him, but is there any kind of news about Sabotage at all?
Um, I would like to say that there is, but there really isn't. Uh, John had a bunch of ideas he was working on. He's, gone through some pretty heavy health stuff.
Yeah.
And, you got to just step back and let that run its course. And we're all hoping for the best.
Hmm.
Trust me,
Definitely.
we would love for something to happen. It is, and another thing too is when Paul O'Neill passed away, it threw a monkey wrench into a lot of things.
All right.
And this is also something that I've stayed out of. It's Savatage and TSO. I've been here for 30 years, but these are not my projects.
Hmm.
I work for John Oliva. I work for Paul. Some of these decisions and stuff, I just, I don't get involved.
All right.
I'm very, very happy with my situation now. And, the winter tours are a huge success, and it allows me to do what I do in the off season,
Mm.
write music and teach and do other things like that. But hey, you know what? We would all love for something to happen, but let's hope so. Keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of
Well,
people.
again, as sorry, Wayne, go ahead.
I was just say a lot of people are just wondering. So go ahead.
Yep. Yep.
But at the same time, again, we're grateful and appreciative of what we get, and
Rather something than
you know,
nothing, because you got
yeah,
Zach Sagan
like
with Circle to Circle, and then you with Alta Reign, and well, everything that you guys have been doing. So there's everybody's doing something, which is cool.
and to know that people within the band are still involved within music, especially in a day where it's so hard to make a living from it. The
Sure.
fact that you guys still are and still going out there, and especially with the TSO shows still continuing on, both East Coast and West Coast. sort of like the Avengers, which is pretty cool. I mean, that's a real comic booky. I mean, that's a real testament to you guys' commitment and your musicianship. And like I said, we're just grateful for whatever output we get from you. And we don't expect more than you can give. It's just we just know that there's a lot of fans of all the projects that are so devoted. I can assume that that must feel overwhelming at some points.
Well, having said all that, I really appreciate what you just said. The other outside projects may not have ever happened. I think there's a lot of good music that's been written and recorded between, myself and Zach and Chris Caffrey, and, all these offshoot things are actually all very good. So, people have benefited in that way. We see each other. We all see each other in Omaha every year. When we go out there to rehearse for these TSO tours, myself, Chris, Johnny, Zach, Al, we're all there. We're all still a part of TSO. And like you said, we've been able, Paul O'Neill created something that is probably going to outlast me and whoever. I'm very fortunate to be a part of this. And it is such a big, successful tour to do every year. We do get the privilege of playing some of this Savatage stuff with TSO. I mean, if you listen to Gutter Ballet and Streets and even, Dead Winter Dead and Wake of Magellan, you can hear Paul was heading in this direction back then. We're not too far removed from what Savatage was and where him and John were taking it. So, but nonetheless, I get what you're saying. And what blows me away, the last show that we did was Wacken in 2015. The last proper tour that we did was 2002 in Europe, maybe something like that. I mean, it's been over 20 years and people are still beating the drum for this thing. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to take that as a compliment. Apparently we did something right, because if they're still wanting this, we must have made quite an impression, and I feel very good about that. But hey, like I said, let's keep our fingers crossed. We're all still here. Anything is possible. And, but seriously, just hoping the best for John,
Yeah,
definitely. Absolutely.
He's been through a lot, and, all we can do is just hope the man gets his health straightened out, and then we can move on from there. So.
Two things that I think are interesting, though, is that when Dead Winter Dead came out, I remember seeing in all the metal magazines and even like magazines like Guitar World, there was like full page advertisements out for this magazine. Like it was so heavily promoted. And, that's when I first heard Christmas Eve Sarajevo, as well as a lot of us. And this is 1995 when, rock radio was playing Offspring, Green Day, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and this and that. And this was right around the time that people started playing Christmas music on the radio stations. And all of a sudden I'm hearing Christmas Eve Sarajevo, and I'm like, am I hearing a metal song on a pop station that's playing Christmas music right now? And, to think that at the time when like the two biggest metal bands were Metallica and Pantera, to hear that on the radio was so refreshing. And, to think that 30 years later, it's still being played around the holidays. I mean, like, did you ever think you'd be played next to Bing Crosby and David Bowie's Little Drummer Boy? I mean, that's got to be a cool feeling.
Bing Crosby, Nat King Cole, and Mariah Carey.
Oh, no, we don't talk Mariah Carey. No. Saw that thing back.
That group right there, we are, I think, Christmas Eve Sarajevo, Christmas Canon, and I think Wizards are right up there with those people as some of the most downloaded Christmas songs ever. It's unbelievable. I mean, when we went into the studio to do Dead Winter Dead, Paul had the concept written, he had the story written, he had the lyrics written. Him and John were still working out some of the music, and I remember I was still the new guy, so I'm just standing at the back of the room watching and listening. there was some pretty heavy conversations on whether this song was going to be on a Savatage record. And Paul felt so strongly about it. And for all of us, once we heard the final version of that song, it's like, damn, that is awesome. But on a Savatage record, are you sure? And Paul pushed it through and made it happen. And it's just, to your point, I think when that song came out, it was such a breath of fresh air. Christmas music had all been just very safe.
Mm.
And this really wasn't safe. Even though it had those two traditional Christmas melodies woven together, bam, once those guitars kicked in and the drums, it was like no Christmas song you ever heard before. Hey, and here we are 30 years later, and this thing is still the driving force behind what we do. It's the biggest song of our show still. It's just an amazing thing that happened. But
It's the Black
Paul,
Diamond moment of the show.
it is absolutely. And you know what? But when we recorded this, Paul knew it. I mean, he knew he had something. It's like this arrangement, this Paul knew he had a gem. He just needed to find a way to make the whole thing really happen.
Mhm.
And when that song became the hit, at the time, John and Paul were already dabbling in non-metal stuff. They were writing music for Broadway and theater and doing stuff like that, utilizing John, because John is extremely talented. So
Mhm.
let's just try to spread our wings here and do something a little bit different. So anyhow, that song was the vehicle for Paul to create TSO and launch this whole thing. But yeah, like I said, the Savatage records prior to that, you could hear he was heading in this direction. But when the door finally opened for him to do this, he went at it all guns blazing. And dude, I'll always hand it to that man. He never stopped until this thing succeeded. And he had a number of reasons to stop, trust me. But he believed in it and pushed it through. And it's amazing. I wouldn't be talking to you guys today if it wasn't for this. So it's amazing how
I
many lives it has affected. I mean, we've all developed careers on the back of that song. These tours are driven by that song. So yeah, it's amazing. It's just such a weird story, but it's really cool all at the same time.
I had the honor of bringing my cousin who was visiting from Melbourne, Australia, to
Oh, wow.
come see you. It was my first time seeing you, and I played her, snippets of the album, and she said, "Oh yeah, I love to look." I'm not gonna try to impersonate an Australian accent, Wayne, but she said that she wanted to go and see it, and we went with two friends of mine from college, and we're just completely blown away. And this is in the Beacon Theater, which is like a 2,500 seat theater, and I couldn't for me to be a young metal fan that grew up in the 90s when our genre was looked down upon, and to see it succeed, to go from the Beacon to the Garden to our backyard of the Nassau Coliseum. I mean, it's such a success story. And we couldn't be happier for all the band member successes. And again, the fact that you're still continuing your own music with Alta Reign is great. Are there any plans to tour behind it or do any kind of festivals next year?
With Alta Reign,
Yes.
short answer is no. I mean, the problem with Alta Reign is even though 5 of the 6 members are all here locally,
Mhm.
everybody's got a full-time job. People got families. Um,
Sounds
logistically,
familiar.
yeah, I mean,
We're in the
logistically,
same
yeah,
situation.
we're okay. We're all right here. I can barely get one of the guys up every 2 or 3 weeks to work on something.
Mhm.
So to put together a set and do it properly, is going to take a lot of rehearsal because the music is complicated. To be done well, it's got to be very well rehearsed. Not just the music, but the vocals. And then just the cost of going on the road, you know, Nothing is cheap.
Yeah,
Trust me, I would love nothing more because I think this music on stage would translate very well, but it's just going to be logistically kind of impossible to do. Hey, if something happens, if all of a sudden somebody gets a hold of one of our songs, Have No Fear or something, and the thing like starts busting through the charts and like, guys, let's do this, then maybe I would have the inspiration to finance it and take the thing out. But yeah, it takes a couple of dollars just to even get out of the driveway. And that's kind of the state that we're at.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in the same boat with our band too. It's just we are more productive recording the music than we would be to go to a studio, practice the songs, and like you say, you want to get those songs to sound perfect, like they sound on the album.
Yeah.
And we did practice a couple times, and it was like it's not there yet, and it's going to take a long time to get where we want it to be. Let's just continue to make new music, and
Yeah.
where we're going to go anyway. It's like in Manhattan, a lot of places have closed down, and then you're going to play to like 10 people, and it's like it's not worth the gas money to go there and do it.
three
Yeah.
three places just closed down in Brooklyn in the last week alone.
Right.
And for the amount of 50 people that say, "Oh yeah, God, come on, go book a show, you book it. Yeah, I'll come to the next one." It's like fungool,
it doesn't work out.
And not to mention, we would be, even though we're older and I'm a veteran and I've got a name and a career and all that, we're a new band.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody and their brother is out there touring right now.
Yeah.
The competition is probably as high as it's ever been just to get a decent slot on a tour, or even to get a club tour for that matter. Because, it really is the whole music scene is completely upside down from what it used to be. And hey, the Alta Reign records, very well received, but in this digital world, when you release music, it is completely up for grabs.
Oh, yeah.
I probably will never make back the money I spent on making these records, and that's fine. The experience is, I achieved what I wanted to. The experience is fantastic. Everybody is proud of what we've done, and everybody that has heard the music has really dug it. And that was the goal. But in order to finance just to go out and do a show, just to even get one show together, it's like, well, if we're going to do all that rehearsing, we're not going to do just one show. We got to plan something a little bit more extensive than that. So you just touched on something earlier. I mean, our idea going forward is, we're just going to write a great song and release it. We're going to keep writing. We're going to keep developing. And once we get something really good, we're going to finish it, maybe do a lyric video or something with it and release it. Keep the name of the band out there. We've got 2 good records that are still out there for a lot of people to hear, and, keep our name out there in the public. So that's going to be our approach going forward. Doing the record thing was, like I said, awesome experience, just to hold that vinyl in my hand and go, wow, look at, we did it. So cool and so rewarding. But the flip side of that is, financially, it just almost doesn't make sense. So
yeah, that's what sucks about today's day and age. I mean, it's nice to go on a streaming service and then you can find everything that you want. But when you're a band and you're trying to sell your product to people, it's just they're not there. They rather listen to it for free on their
sure.
streaming service.
It is amazing. I'll tell you what, Rat Pack Records, Joel Bryan at Rat Pack did a fantastic job packaging these records, promoting them, putting them out there. The record is, I mean, the artwork is awesome.
Yeah.
Packaging is awesome. When you get the record or the CD and you look at it, it's like, oh my God, this is really, you're kind of intrigued just from looking at it,
Right. Yeah. It's all those album covers. Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid going to the record store, you see a record, wow, I want to hear what this is because it looks great.
Right. It's one of those ones where you look at it and you buy it because of the album cover alone,
Yeah. But anyhow, Joe, he's, it's just amazing how little people with a name that do a solo project. It's like, oh my God, they got this huge fan base, myself included. You think, I'm going to tap into that. This is going to be awesome. Yeah,
doesn't work that way.
and then you get the numbers at the end of the year and you go, oh, are you sure there isn't like a zero missing on the
Yeah.
end of that? Something it's like,
Yeah.
no, that's the reality of it. But hey, it is what it is. But like you said, once it's out there, once it's streaming, people pay their $10 a month or whatever, and we get 0.003 of spin or some damn thing. It's crazy. It's completely wrong, but it is what it
It
is.
is. You think that there's ever going to be a way to fix this? I mean,
I
you've
mean,
been in this. Yeah.
I thought Bandcamp was the way to go because you're buying directly from the artist.
Right.
But
I I don't know. I don't think so. The younger generation is so used to this now.
Mm.
They like, what do you mean buy a record?
Yeah.
I can Google it right now and listen to it. What do I want to do that?
I'm getting some older people that are saying that now.
Yeah, it's like
Like,
I don't even want
geez.
the record. I just want this one song. Why do I want to buy the record?
Right.
So
I mean,
I think the only thing that's going to fix this is a solar flare, and it just knocks out all the internet. And we got to go
That's
back to cassettes or something.
I mean, I still believe that
we act like
physical
a city.
media has value because I remember there was a point in time where, and yes, I do subscribe to a streaming service because my wife is a music teacher, and it's easier for her to access songs that she needs to sing with the kids for the chorus concerts.
Mhm.
But there was a point in time where there were certain albums that I was looking for that were not so much that they were out of, I mean, some more than others were out of print, but others were just not available on any streaming format at all. And I was just like, you know, I miss the days when, the only way you could get music was if you bought something that was tangible, a
Yeah.
cassette or CD, or, Wayne, he's a huge vinyl collector. So, I, on principle, still buy the CD. I mean, I stream so that this way my favorite artists can continuously get royalties if they do from streaming. But I think it's important for you to buy a CD from a band or buy a T-shirt because then it keeps them going. It's like a lot of musicians, this is their full-time gig, so they need that. They need those resources to continue going. Otherwise, it's like you don't deserve the stuff that they're put out because you're not supporting the artist in the first place. And
Yeah.
I think within the metal genre, um, the fans are still music buyers. I mean, not so much casual fans, but the ones that still, love the music now as much as they did then.
Mhm.
And hopefully, younger generation of metal fans will, not just metal fans, all music fans will continue to do that. Or I mean, it's just wishful thinking,
Yeah.
but speaking for myself, I I still love physical media.
I was going to say that exact same thing. It's wishful thinking, but I don't know if you're going to put that genie back in the bottle. It's just too convenient for people, like I said, to pick up their phone and type in a song. Boom, I can hear it right there. Snap of my fingers, I can listen to it. I don't want to put any more effort into it. Um, yeah, the older generation. I think there's also a misconception too when you have an artist, people don't understand how much money it took to make that record.
Right.
They don't understand that even though you are playing in this band and you've got a couple songs that are popular, that doesn't make you a millionaire. I think there's still kind of this misconception as to, how much money does a band make? How much money does a song or an album generate? Um, and like I mentioned before, the whole idea of playing live, everybody and their brothers out there playing live because they're fighting the same thing. I think some of these bands from the past probably didn't handle and manage their money very well, and now they've got to try to survive.
Right.
So they're out there
Mm-hmm.
trying to sell tickets and T-shirts, and maybe a CD here and there, but yeah, it's a tough world. It really is. I myself, along with my bandmates, in TSO, we're all just so thankful for that gig because it is a successful gig every year, you know. We certainly put a lot of work into it. We've certainly helped develop the thing up to this point, but between Paul O'Neill and his family and the management that keep this thing running, you know, and just Paul O'Neill's creation to begin with, you know, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be here. But that whole thing there is just such a blessing because I've made a career out of it. It's allowed me to do some of this other stuff. I can afford to make a record and not tour and hopefully break even on it.
Right.
I would like it to be better than that, but that's just the reality of it. But yeah, you know, and the other thing too, there are so many damn bands out there now. There's so much new music. I don't even know what's what anymore.
You can't keep up.
I can't keep up with it. I have these drum students, these young kids, you know, they come up and I can't even tell you the name of the band, but there's always some band. I'm like, oh, really? Let me Google this. Oh, wow. They've only got 25 million views. I've never heard of them before, you know?
Yeah.
So it's interesting how, and I mean, and I guess that generation too, if you know what you're doing, you can make some money off the YouTube, off the internet thing too, you know, licensing some stuff and whatever. But yeah, there's just so much music out there. There's a lot of really good stuff and maybe not so good stuff, but
Right. Yeah. Some
it's
people,
what it is.
Yeah.
some people should know not to pick up that instrument or hit record on a recorder.
But Alta Reign is good stuff, so go out and buy it.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Speaking of the technology, what do you think of the AI stuff that's going on right now? Are you
Again, with the
okay with
AI.
that? Yeah, I can't help it. We're actually working on an AI concept album, so I'm curious. What do you think about AI?
Are you using AI for your
No,
concept album?
No. We're
It's just
writing.
the
It's a story
is,
about
it.
one man's battle with AI.
Wow.
We're drug free, mind you. Just letting you know that.
Yeah, that was my next question. No, I don't know what to make of it. I wish it was, you know, used for, why don't we use AI to cure cancer? Let's fix some real problems here instead of trying to write some song that sounds like the Beatles and, you know, whatever. It's like, I don't know. I think some of it's just foolish. I think it's lazy,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
But here again, you can't tell a young person that. They're like, well, what do you mean? I've got the tools, I got the technology. Of course I can do this, blah, 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 you know?
Right.
I'm creating, but just to kind of beg, borrow, and steal from other sources to make music, I think I don't dig it. I don't dig it at all. I mean, I tell you what, the AI stuff that I've heard, I think it sounds fake. You know, as soon as I
You
hear
can
it,
tell it immediately.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
all the vocals sound pretty identical, and the musical sounds kind of identical. So it's
Wasn't this new Motley Crue song, wasn't that AI generated?
I
Mm.
supposedly that's what I heard.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it. You
I
know, when
think
I first heard it, it was like, oh, this is new Motley Crue tune. I was like, really? Is that really Motley Crue?
now,
Kind of
who
sounds
is
like
Motley Crue? I
If
don't even
it
think
sounds
Motley Crue
bad,
knows
it's
who
Motley Crue.
Yeah. We might having an AI Vince Neil might not be a bad thing after all. That's a whole other show.
well, that may be the reality as it is anyhow. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I don't know, man. I just it's hard enough making a dent in this music business, let alone without some supercomputer
Right.
competing against you. You know,
Yeah.
it's like nobody's got to feed him. He doesn't need to pay his bills.
Just
Jesus.
waiting for some funny article on like The Onion or Babylon B to come out saying, man, release an album recording AI, bought a bunch of bots to earn $10 million and now got arrested for some illegal activity, which I'm just waiting for something like that to happen. Some crazy guy out there uses AI and buys bots and becomes a millionaire and gets arrested. I'm waiting for
Sure.
that to happen just so you can suffer in prison.
It's kind of like sitting right there on the tee. If it happens, you won't be surprised, right?
I
So
know, but please, somebody try it.
But getting back to TSO, and I hate to bring up bad stories, but Paul Neal passed away. Um, how what was it like being around the band at that time? I mean, like, did you know that his family was going to take it over, or what was going on in everybody's mind?
You kind of mentioned that they gave you their blessing and are still continuing on with it.
no, I think you're confusing that with Matt. We are talking about the Wicked Witch stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I apologize, my mistake.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so I when I got the phone call, I was here at home, and it's like Wednesday night, and I see the number from my office, and I was like, oh, what's going on?
Mm,
Answer the phone, we lost Paul. And I sat down with my wife, and I was like, well, that's been a really good run.
mm,
I've got no regrets. I My initial thought was, how is this going to go on?
all right.
And Paul used to tell us all the time, TSO is going to outlive us all. We're going to pass this on from generation to generation. And then next thing you know, we're doing it without him. That wasn't part of the plan.
Mm,
So his family, I mean, obviously this was 2017. It had already been established that this is a huge success.
mm-hmm,
These tours are a huge success. They not only entertain, we between both bands, we play to close to 1 million people a year,
wow.
just in this short touring time. But not just the people that we are entertaining, but the people that we employ. There's a lot of people involved in what we do,
Right.
and they decided, we're going to keep this thing going, and I'm glad that they did. I remember talking with Paul's wife at his funeral, and she was, we're not gonna let this thing go. Paul did all this work. He didn't do this for nothing. We're gonna keep this thing going. We're gonna figure this out, and obviously we gotta iron some things out, but he created something that is, like I said earlier, is going to outlast me, I'm sure.
Mm,
But that was tough. That was a tough one. I remember getting out to rehearsals that year, and Paul was such a stickler for everything. We'd be rehearsing, and he's out there on the floor of the arena pointing at lights. It's got to be certain color, and that's got to be pointed here, and you got to be standing there, and vocalist, you've got to do this. There was just this chaos with Paul
yeah.
that was magic, and it was so entertaining, but he always got the best out of us.
Yeah.
Whatever little tweak he was carrying on about made a difference. So, and all of a sudden that wasn't there.
Mm,
So that was really, really pretty sad. But he was very smart in surrounding himself with a lot of really good people. The management has been with him from the beginning.
mm-hmm,
The production staff, for the most part, has been with him from the beginning. And then you got all of us Savatage guys. We'd been with him now for all that time. We knew exactly what the deal was and what the job was, and pretty much everybody else that was on board in either band knew what the job was. We need to go out there and keep doing what we do and carry this on, and follow his lead and make the guy proud. So, but yeah, that was one of those, hey, we go through this in life with, in family situations or personal situations, these things just happen, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, how are we gonna move on from this? So, but so far so good. We've done a really good job of keeping the ship afloat, and the tours are still they're fresh every year, and we do everything we can to just go out there and make them the best. So, but yeah,
Well,
yep, sad deal. But Paul set us up really well, so we're real thankful for that.
and kudos to you guys for continuing on the tradition. And again, as always, congrats on all the success that you've had with it.
Thanks, man. Yep, we like I said, he set us up really well, so he left us in a good place, and yeah, him and I'll chat about it again someday, I'm sure. But in the meantime, I'm going to go up there and do my thing, and do, like I said, be the best I can, and everybody on the stage has the same feeling. So that's why the shows are still so good.
Cool. Is there any new music being worked on or thought about for TSO?
Kind of the same situation as Savatage. It just it just threw such a wrench into everything. Always working on stuff.
Yeah.
The deal was Paul was everything. He
Right.
was the lyricist, writer, producer, the yes man, the no man. He had his fingers in every aspect of everything that we do. So there's still some sorting out to do. But trust me, I know he had talked about several other projects that he wanted to either finish or start or something. So let's hope that maybe someday there's some of this music that maybe his daughter or his wife will say, hey, let's get back in the studio and work on this. So, but in the meantime, here again, we just keep doing what we're doing in the off season, and we're at the ready. So,
Cool. And then your tour starts up pretty soon too, right?
it comes around quicker every year, man. It seems like I just got off the bus from the last one. I'm already on the radio promoting the next one. So it's
Dude, I
all good.
already saw Halloween stuff in Walgreens last month. You don't think that Christmas concerts are going to start soon again? I mean, come on.
Exactly.
2024.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And the only other band that I don't think we've talked about yet, Metal Church. How was your time in Metal Church? You did quite a few albums with Metal Church, actually. So how was your time with the band?
Yeah, I did 3 albums with those guys. No,
I think you did like 6.
no, I did 4 albums. 4 albums.
Something like that. Yeah.
A Light in the Dark, This Present Wasteland, Generation Nothing, and then XI. That was another thing.
Yeah.
It's like when I joined Savatage, I knew of Mountain King, Gutter Ballet. I had seen these videos on Headbangers Ball or something. When I got into the Savatage catalog and started listening to this music, like, holy crap, there's a lot of great stuff here. My God, I had no idea that it was so musical and dynamic and, symphonic. It was, So with Metal Church, I did a couple solo records with Chris Caffrey. And we ended up opening for Metal Church in Europe. God, what year was this? 04 or 05? Or whatever it was. But Metal Church, there's always been a connection with Savatage. Kurt Vanderhoof and Paul O'Neill had worked together and so on and so forth. So anyhow, we just all got along great on that tour. It was a lot of fun. But Kirk Arrington, Metal Church's drummer at the time, was already kind of dealing with some health issues. And we got done with the tour, and Kirk called me up. I think it was 06. He said, hey, Kirk is, he's just not able to do this anymore. What do you think? And I said, sure, I'd love to. Because when we toured with them, listening to Metal Church every night, it's like, I had no idea how good this stuff was. This is, Vanderhoof has written some of the best hard rock riffs and songs. It's just classic stuff. It's great. And yeah, I was really thrilled to come aboard and work with those guys. So yeah, we did 4 records. I came in, we did A Light in the Dark, and that did really, really well. And then there was just a problem with the label. There was just some problems, and the whole thing kind of got bogged down again. We came back out, we did Generation Nothing, and then Ronnie Monroe, he wanted to just do some other things. So, then Ronnie's tenure came to an end. But on the backside of that, Mike Howe came back into the band.
Right. Yeah.
Rest in
Mike
peace.
Howe.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Geez, the poor guy. But he was fantastic. I mean, him and I hit it off right from the beginning. XI is my favorite record that I did with the band.
Mhm.
And we hit it off and we hit the road and we did a lot of shows with that lineup. In Europe, it went over great. We did some really good stuff here. We did the one tour, the one Megadeth, Amon Amarth, was it Suicidal, and then Metal Church and Butcher Babies, or I think that was the lineup. But anyhow, yeah, we did some really good stuff with that lineup. And then, and then honestly for me, it was like Metal Church was one of those bands that just could never seem to get
Yeah, exactly.
further up the ladder,
Yeah.
And I just kind of reached a point in my life where it's like, guys, I love doing this. There's no issues with the band. We're all friends, but this is really kind of beating me up.
Mm.
And I need to keep myself in one piece for TSO. That's my career and that's my job.
All right.
So as much as I loved playing in Metal Church, we were still kind of touring in a less than favorable situation, still in the clubs.
Mm.
As much as we tried to make something a little bit bigger happen, there was something that always seemed to get in the way. And, to really, there really was nobody to blame for that. It's just kind of, you're victims of a situation sometime. And that's kind of where the band was. But yeah, so, but then, as you just alluded to, then losing Mike altogether, that was like, wow, I didn't see that coming. Holy
Mhm.
crap. But yep, yep. I speak to Kurt, him and I we still chat, talk about things, we've always talked about doing some other kind of project, and I guess maybe that's still a possibility, but we'll see.
Good.
Well, one thing though that I mean, because I remember hearing the dark when my older brother bought the cassette back in 86, 87. So I was 6 or 7 when I first heard it. And I worked for MTV for about 15 years. The first 11 years I spent in operations. And one of the networks I was responsible for was MTV2. At the time, Headbangers Ball came back, and Mirror of Lies was in heavy rotation on that show for like most of the year. And I was just like, freaking A, Metal Church is back on MTV. So like, or MTV2, but back to their music videos being played. And I was jovial from it, just remembering
Wow.
what that music meant to me growing up. So I was like, good on Metal Church for that happening.
Yeah, so I knew that we were getting a little action with that video, but this was like a bunch of live footage that was all pieced
Yes,
together,
sir.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was all recorded over to Vakken. We did a show at Vakken. Um, yeah, this was one of the cooler moments I ever had with Metal Church. I can't remember who canceled. Somebody canceled. We were over there touring and they said, hey, there is a noon slot on a secondary stage. This one act just canceled. Would you guys like to do the gig? So we get to Vakken, at whatever time in the morning it was, and set up, and they opened up the gates. I'm like setting up my drums, and next thing I know, I turn around and there's like 5,000 people
Hmm.
at like 11 o'clock in the morning, and they are just jacked up. They're ready to go. They're, fists in the air, crowd surfing. It grew to about probably 10,000 people by the time, we got fired up and was into the set. It was just so much fun. It was so early in the day, and I just couldn't believe how energetic that crowd was and how much they loved what we were doing. It was awesome. But we had a really good run on that record. We did really well in Europe, and like I mentioned and when we did XI with Mike, getting him back in the band, that really gave a big boost to the fans. They were
Yeah.
so happy to get him back, and
Yeah.
he still sounded great, still great on stage. But at the end of the day, he was unfortunately dealing with some demons that we weren't really aware of, and we lost him. But yeah, I feel very fortunate. I've really played in a couple of the more classic hard rock metal bands of that era,
Mm.
and just a lot of great tunes. A lot of great tunes. Love
Very
playing all that
cool.
stuff. Yep, it always kind of struck me that Savatage, even in Metal Church, even though there was kind of always a connection there, the two never toured together.
Oh,
You
really?
know, they were friendly, and Paul was producing Kurt and Metal Church, and it just always was like, wow, wonder why that never happened. It just the stars never aligned, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyhow, yeah, that was a lot of fun. I was really, really proud of my tenure there.
Yeah. Yeah, you did some good albums. And you've been in so many great bands throughout the years. And I'm just happy to hear you. And you're still doing it today. And you got the Alta Reign, and you're still with TSO and everything. And hopefully Savatage does something eventually. And I wish the best of luck to you, man.
Keep your fingers
Yeah,
crossed, dude. That's the best we can do. And like I said earlier, the main thing is let's hope that John gets well.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the most important thing. Without him,
yeah,
we don't have Savatage. So we need that.
there you
definitely.
go. There you go. I mean, he's a good man. He's been through a lot, and one of the more unique characters that you'll ever meet for sure. But his talent, and he completely self-taught, you know,
Wow.
but his feel and his vocals are, second to none. There's such emotion in John's playing and singing that, yeah. And like I
Oh, yeah.
said, when I got into the band and discovered really what was there, it's like, holy crap, this is great stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
all
remember,
good,
I
man.
remember the time I first heard Sirens. I was listening to a college radio station, but this was like in the '90s. This was around Dead Winter Dead time, where before it came out or whatever. And I heard Sirens for the first time. I'm like, who the hell is this band? And I never heard somebody singing like that before.
Yeah.
He was such a great singer, and of course, I had to go out and try to find an album. I couldn't find it at the time, so I ended up. That's how I got Dead Winter Dead, and I'm like, this ain't the same band. It's got a different singer. What the hell's going on here?
And
But
really sounded completely different
it's
from
totally different, totally
yeah,
different. But I
yeah.
still liked it anyway. I still loved it, and then I love every Savatage album. So, do you have a favorite Savatage album? Is it one you can pick?
Um,
Fight for the Rock. No, just kidding.
Could be. I don't know.
well, in all honesty, probably Hall of the Mountain King is probably my favorite Savatage record.
Mm.
But I would say for the three that I've done with the band, all of them equally. Dead Winter Dead was just such a groundbreaking moment for the band.
Mhm.
And Dead Winter Dead obviously gave us Sarajevo 1224.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we've got this hit in America, but that album was a hit in Europe.
Mm.
We went over to Europe with that lineup in 1996. That was one of the most fun tours and times of my life. It was awesome. Everything was sold out. It was so cool.
Uh,
Wake of Magellan, you know what? That became. There was a lot of great stuff on there. I think Hourglass is one of those special songs that really stands out from everything. But you know what? When Zach stepped out and we did Poets and Madmen,
mhm.
the band kind of got a little more heavier.
Right.
That album was just a little heavier, a little more metal, and there's really something to that album too that I really like a lot. But hey, man, I'll tell you, it's like every version of Savatage that I've played in and toured in has all been very good.
Mhm.
And I'll be honest with you, probably my favorite version of Savatage is the four-piece Hall of the Mountain King band with Chris
Yeah.
Oliva,
Yeah.
with Doc up there playing his ass off. They were such a dangerous four-piece rock band. And Chris Oliva is playing, what a shame, right? Just what would that man be doing today? But
Right. Yeah.
his playing back in the day was like, wow, check this guy out. He's just phenomenal,
Yeah.
phenomenal. So, yeah, a lot of good music, a lot of different lineups, but at the end of the day, it all comes back to the Olivas and Paul O'Neill, and you cannot mistake that sound and
Oh,
that
yeah.
style. So,
Yeah. Yep. Good stuff. All good stuff. Anything else, Lou?
No, just Jeff, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was a real pleasure getting to talk to you. And again,
Yeah,
we're
like
big admirers of your work, and congrats on all the success that you've had. And here we are wishing you more success in the future,
thanks,
especially with
man.
Alta Reign, TSO, all your projects.
I really appreciate it. The Alta Reign stuff, you can go to Amazon, you can find those CDs there. You can check out the Alta Reign Facebook page or my music page on Facebook. I am admittedly not so good with the social media.
Who is anymore?
Anything, it's like website, why?
I don't. I have a
Everybody goes
website
to
for this, but I'm gonna get rid of it. I don't use
everybody
it
goes to Facebook and there's you can get the word out there without
pretty much.
investing a lot of time and money into something that you can't maintain or
Yeah.
pay somebody to maintain, et cetera, et cetera. But thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate the support and the questions. You guys, this turned out to be a very cool interview. You go into these and you wonder, what the hell are we going to talk about? We talked about a
How
lot
long
of
have you
stuff.
been
It's
playing
almost 2 hours.
I know. It goes about an hour, but when we got a guest like you on here, we got to go a little longer. And I'm glad you gave us all the time that you gave us too. So I really appreciate it.
Jeff, we had Sal Abruscato, the original drummer of Typo Negative and Life of Agony, on the show. I think we had him on for 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
you can't get
Sal
him
loves to
stop
talk, but it's all good.
Hey, you know what, too? It's like sometimes when I do these interviews, I kind of get reminded of the things that I've done.
Hmm.
You showed that Machines of Grace CD at the very beginning. It's like, my God, I haven't thought about that in a long time. I've
Yeah.
got it on my wall here in my studio, but I need to throw that thing in there and listen to that again because
Yeah.
that brings back some good memories. But hey, I'm proud of everything I've been able to do, and luckily I've had some really good people to do it with. So we put out some really good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, oh, when is there any point soon that we're going to hear a new Alta Reign song?
So we've got something right now that is basically written.
Okay.
I've got the demo. Everything is in place. Now I think we need to go in and like really re-record this thing and get everything really, really set in stone. But I hope to have a song finished and ready to release hopefully by the end of the TSO tour, by the end of this year.
Okay.
If not then right around the first of the year, we'll get something new out. But it's really good. It's really good. I mean, the more you do this, I mean, in theory, you should get better, right? So
You would hope so.
I think we've learned a few things along the way, and I think we got something really good here again. So
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, again, Jeff, thank you very much for coming on the show. Rat Salad Review on YouTube and on freeworld.fm. Thanks for everybody listening on there as well. And I'm actually going to play. Oh, yeah. What is that, Lou?
It's our Severed Angel album, severedangel.com. It'll link you straight to our Bandcamp. Support
cool.
music.
Yeah.
Support
And
the
I like
artist
the
directly.
name. And I
Also
like the name. That's a good
Thank you.
name.
Actually, I'd like to send you those CDs too, Jeff, if you would like them.
Yeah, we'll
Sure.
gladly send you a copy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll send you a copy of those. But I'm
I'll,
gonna
I'll shoot you my address, and we'll
very,
take care of that.
very cool, very cool. Well, I'm gonna play because on freeworld.fm we play music as well because I got a few minutes left on that show, and we're gonna play a Alta Reign song right now. All right, so enjoy that, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a good night.
Cheerio.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep. Take care.
Cheers.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much for coming on the show, Jeff. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. So you guys are on Long Island, you said?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, I don't think we're doing the island this year with TSO. I think Jersey's probably the closest.
Jersey.
Yeah, Prudential Center.
Wayne, it's still on YouTube. You want to turn off?
Oh, am I? We don't
Yeah.
like Jersey anyway.